And now, here's your host of Shaping Success, Wes Tankersley.
What is up, everyone? Welcome to Shaping Success. I am your host, Wes Tankersley, back with another interview. We'll get to that in a minute here. This Shaping Success is proudly brought to you by Warriors Collection Brand. Head over to Warriors Collection Brand and use code hashtag SWC. That's hashtag SWC, which stands for Success Warrior Crew. Because, well, this is Shaping Success. And you will get a 15% discount off of the coffee club. Today's guest is a friend of mine, Andrew Ritterling. We've been talking a little bit about trying to help develop and build Shaping Success and just make it a bigger thing, a bigger brand. But he is a business coach and he helps people to kind of find out how they can go around and navigate the business space, whether it be loans, hooking up with franchises and things like that. He reached out to me on LinkedIn and we've been talking a little bit about how we can expand Shaping Success and businesses and things like that. So we're going to talk to him about why he does it, how he does it, and if, you know, maybe he can help you out if you're looking to start your own business. So here we go. Andrew, thanks for hanging out with me, man.
Hey, Wes, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. It's an honor to be here.
Yeah, it's been one of those cool things, and I think you probably you found me on LinkedIn, and I think that's a real great place to connect. And maybe you saw some of the stuff that we're doing with Shaping Success, or just kind of saw that I'm that entrepreneur. Like, I feel like entrepreneur is one of those words that when I was a kid, it was like there's not very many of them, but the reality is that there is lots of them, right?
Yeah, that's right. And I think we're seeing even more and more of a desire to enter into entrepreneurship as, traditional jobs or corporate America has changed over the last 20, 30 years. So I think entrepreneurship has risks and rewards, and people are really curious about what it looks like, right, versus the traditional path.
Yeah, and when we talk about that, like we're talking about traditional path, a lot of people, I kind of fell game to this when I was a kid because my parents told me, go to college, get a degree, do this, do that. And that may be necessary, but when you want to be an entrepreneur, not always is. It could help you along the way. I believe you have an MBA, right?
Yeah, I do. Correct.
Okay. So you had, it's a good idea to get a degree for the types of things that you're wanting to do. And an MBA is a great one if you're going to start your own business. But it doesn't always mean, like, I have 2 degrees in education and I don't use them anymore. So it doesn't always mean it's a necessary thing, right?
Yeah, I think so, especially depending on which route of business you choose. A startup, doing something on your own from the ground up, do a franchise, plug into a great franchise concept that supports you, provides the training and resources you need to get off and running. It just depends on which avenue you want to take. I've heard of some of my fellow coaches helping 18-year-olds get into business as a replacement of college, saying, hey, I don't even want to go to college. I just want to get right into business. And so, I think that landscape's definitely changed from the traditional, hey, go to 4 years, get a high degree, and then get into a great business job. And that still is the pathway for many Americans, and it's not a bad pathway. But I think there is a curiosity of saying, hey, is that still the correct way to do things, right? And it's very dependent on each person, but the landscape, I feel, has definitely changed in recent years.
I agree. Like, in being in education, like, a lot of times you see social media, video things like this, like doing a podcast, having a YouTube channel, gaming. These are all things that are coming up more and more, and people are trying to build business off of that, but they're realizing that they don't have to go get a $50,000, $100,000 piece of paper to reach their full potential.
That's right. Yeah. And you also got to look at student loan debt, right? I think that's a big, I want to say issue in America, but that may not be the right word, but it's something that we see more and more of, right? Student loan debt and how long it takes to pay it off. So just a lot of factors for each person, right? Sometimes trade schools can be a great route, right? Getting your hands on something that people need on their day-to-day. And it really just depends on the environment of which you want to enter into. But I will say business ownership is a very, very dynamic way to put any skill set into practice, right? So that's why I love meeting a variety of people and helping them really plug in and figure out the right pathway for them.
Yeah, and so you do it kind of in an interesting way. You work for, or do you own the franchise? Did you purchase a franchise?
Yeah, great question. So I am a franchisee of the Entrepreneur Source. So it is my own business, but I am absolutely a franchisee using the entrepreneur sources support, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And it helps you to connect with people, right? So what they do, and we've talked about this a little bit, and you can just elaborate on it, but they actually try to do some assessments and things like that and kind of understand who you are, what your goals are, where your financial situation is. And people don't like talking about money, but the fact of the matter is you have to have finances in order to run your own business. That's something that has to happen. You have to figure out how to make that work, and then kind of just connect people with the right places, right?
Yeah, and if you don't mind, I can go a little bit into the history of the entrepreneur source and how it was birthed, and that how it is today, right?
Yep,
So
go for it.
Terry Powell is our founder, and it was birthed about 38 years ago. He was a franchise broker, and the story goes something like this. I mean, he would have about, I think it was 3 minutes or so to vet someone who would call in wondering about franchising. So they'd say, hey, I'm just curious about franchising. How does it work? And he would literally have to vet them in or out within a couple of minutes. And that was one of the metrics they used. And as Terry was doing this, he just found that the same people were calling to get an extra couple minutes of education, right? They would call week over week, trying to just learn a little bit more, but he had to quickly dismiss them if they weren't qualified or weren't ready to move, right? So he actually started the Entrepreneur Source from a standpoint of we want to help people explore and educate them on what business ownership looks like, and is it a good pathway for you? And if so, what might be a great fit, right? So we are not brokers. We don't identify as brokers. We are career ownership coaches. So at a high level, I work with clients who are in a transition period, got laid off, they quit, or sometimes they just want to expand their portfolio. But what I do is I take them through a series of assessments. Some are personal, to where they can talk to their spouse and really figure out, hey, what is my goal and vision for the future, right? And we always talk about the ILWE: income, lifestyle, wealth, and equity. What do you want the next 6 months, 1 year, 2 years? What are your goals, right? And the other assessments really help us hone in on what do you enjoy, your behaviors, your motivators, your drivers. And so what that does as a coach, it allows me to align with my clients. And then I pull from my network of about 225, give or take, business possibilities. And I help people learn about a specific number of those that may make sense to help them achieve their goal. So we really look at it from, hey, is the business the right vehicle for you and your goals, rather than, hey, are you going to get into business? Yes or no? That's not our goal. Our goal is to align with our clients, and no matter their outcome, whether they say I still need to get a traditional job, or I want to do both, a traditional job and a business, or go full-time into a business, whatever their outcome is, I want to celebrate that if it helps them get closer to their goals. So that's my driving force right there, is helping my clients achieve their goals, but exploring things that they maybe never would have considered, or they don't know how it works. So that's a very high level nutshell of what we do. And it's been a blast just meeting so many different people and taking them through that discovery journey.
Yeah, and it's a great thing. We started talking about this because I'm looking to try to kind of expand Shaping Success and try and figure out how that's going to work. And there are so many different things you can do. You help people with franchises, without franchises, just whatever it is to try and get their own business started. And you don't charge them anything, right? Like, this is like kind of like a counseling service.
Yeah, yeah, to some degree. I sometimes feel like a counselor. Yeah, I'm not a life coach per se. I don't really sit down and talk about people's lives in that extreme amount of details, but sometimes it comes out, and I welcome that. But yeah, we really do focus on, hey, what are your professional goals? What are your personal goals, right? Where do you want your family to be in the next year? And then from that, is there a business opportunity that would make sense? I do leverage franchises quite a bit because that is a proven concept that other people have done. And most of the time, there's a pretty good formula associated. Hey, here's the investment. Here's what the time commitment needed. And here's your potential outcome if you follow that system. So that's why I like to leverage franchising to a high degree, because it shows people what it would take to be successful, rather than a startup, which can be very volatile, a little bit difficult to get up and running. So we can definitely compare, hey, what does a franchise offer you versus your own startup? What's the pros? What's the cons? And so we absolutely unpack those differences and pros and cons.
Yeah, and I think one of the great things that talking about like a franchise, like you said, they have a business model. They essentially have a business plan. So when you're going to go, like say you don't have capital and you're going to go look for funding, someone is going to back something that has a proven plan rather than something that doesn't. So when you're doing a startup like you talked about, it's like you have to write the business plan, you have to kind of prove how you're going to do it, and you have to create those parameters yourself, where it's kind of a one-off thing. When you look at like one of the biggest franchises I always think about is McDonald's. People don't necessarily know that that's a franchise a lot of times, but it has a proven path. You pay a certain amount to them to get to sell their product, and they have a proven product that people buy, right? So that's kind of
Yeah, I like to say it. You're in business for yourself, but you're not by yourself, right?
right.
So yeah, you're exactly right. There's a franchise fee that gives you access to their systems, technologies, training, and support. Then from there, you will need some operational capital to get up and running. And then a lot of times they can tell you, hey, here's the timeline that a lot of people have seen to see profitability. So they really give you a good preemptive view at what you'll need, right? And the formula for success, as opposed to when you do start your own business from scratch, you're kind of on your own. You either have to figure it out or hire those skills to help you, which can be costly, especially if you make mistakes. So franchises kind of have done the mistakes already, and now they kind of help you get up and running, as fast as possible. And I always like to look at it too as a business model. So, for example, I help my clients expand their minds. Right, a great example of this is like porta potties or pest control. Right, nobody really wakes up in the morning saying, "Hey, I want to own a porta potty company or a pest control company." But I do like to challenge clients to say, hey, look at it from the business model perspective. If you're working from home, you have a technician in the field, you never have to touch a bug, but you got monthly reoccurring revenue, and you also have, the help of the franchisor at your disposal. It can be a very powerful business model, right? So I help clients expand their minds. Many times people come to me and say, hey, well, I want a restaurant. My question will be, well, why? And why do you think that? And then we have a great dialogue. Maybe a restaurant is the right thing, but in the process, we're going to show you a couple of different options so that you can really validate or overturn that assumption with learning something else. So it's really an open-minded exercise, if not anything else, of saying explore what's out there, and it's a lot of fun. Just educate yourself, have fun with it. And we do provide, you mentioned funding earlier. I do have partnerships in the funding space. So that's a legitimate element of any investment, but we don't want to disqualify people right out of the gate. We want to make sure we get their full story. What's going on? How can we help? And is there a pathway forward in the funding space that you may not know about? And that's what I help people explore as well. So it's surprising what we can find when people are dedicated and have an open mind. There's a lot of possibilities that people disqualify themselves without the facts, right? So we're just here to bring the facts and help people see what's possible.
Yeah, and I think that's a lot of people get lost in the fact that they think, oh, I can't do that, but they have to be willing to kind of, like you said, that's where the risk comes in, right? Like traditional job, you go work for, say, like I was a teacher, right? I'm working for a school district. I have a guaranteed income every week, every 2 weeks, or once a month, I'm going to get this same paycheck, and I'm going to get this much put into my retirement, and I'm going to get this much for health insurance. And like you have all that stuff, there's not really any risk involved in it, but it might not be as fulfilling as having your own business or doing something where, yeah, there's a little bit of risk, but the reward is much higher than just being complacent and staying on a flat line.
Yeah, you're really removing, you're changing vehicles, right? So in the traditional job path, career path, you're getting paid what they say you're worth, right? You're worth $100,000 and we're going to match you 3% your 401k, whatever it is, right? They dictate your value. You could bring that organization $3 million, but they're only going to pay you what they say you're worth, right? So it really does kind of put that cap on someone. So when you look at it from a business ownership lens, you almost remove that cap. Obviously, you incur a little, you incur the risk, but absolutely on that back end, there is no cap, there is no limit. And it's a whole paradigm shift to say, hey, I take on this risk, but hey, the rewards, like you said, can be much greater. My lifestyle can dramatically change, and overall long-term equity, right? A business is yours. You can sell it. You can hand it off to your children. A lot of different things you can do with it. It's an asset. And so that's why businesses are investments, right? You're never buying a business. You're investing in it because you want it to grow and hopefully have a great exit strategy or give you the lifestyle, wealth, or equity that you're looking for in the current time and also in the future.
So tell me, yeah, I mean, that's all great stuff. And that's what I think, that like people are just a little scared to take that risk. But tell me why does that intrigue you? Because you've obviously started your own franchise. You're doing this. You're coaching this, but you're also doing this. You're living that life. Why did you want to do that, and what brought you to where you are now?
Oh, thanks for that question. I love that question. So, I bounced around my corporate career. So, like you mentioned, I did get my MBA. Got it pretty young, right out of my college experience there. And I actually had people tell me, "Who cares that you have an MBA? Everyone's got an MBA." And so I had recruiters tell me that. So I did find myself in a tumultuous corporate experience, right? Where I worked for just a variety of different things. I worked in the construction field as an estimator. I did door-to-door sales, right? I also did retail. I ran a restaurant. So I was all over the place. And most recently, I was with a big organization. I won't mention the name, but I kept getting laid off. I had really great results. They would lay me off, right? And then they would hire me back. And then I even moved from Colorado to Kansas City, right? Hire me back. I would have really great results and then laid off again. It was very cyclical. So I kind of had this thought of saying, okay, Andrew, I could either go back into corporate America and know what to expect, or I can kind of go behind this entrepreneurship journey. And obviously, it's a little scary, but the opportunities are endless, right? So I actually worked with an entrepreneur source coach that I knew from Colorado, and she took me through the same journey that I take my clients on, and we explored a variety of things. And I ended up saying, "Hey, I really like what you do. Is that a possibility?" And it is a franchise, so it is. And so the rest is history. I fell in love with it because not only did I find freedom for me and my family, the lifestyle, the equity, all those things I found for me and my family, I'm helping other people find it too. And that's the most rewarding feeling, is saying, I talked to somebody 2 days ago who said, "Andrew, I have my smile back. I'm singing again. I'm dancing in the kitchen. My wife got me back." So the family is so pleased because they found their direction, and that joy outweighs their risk, right? And so they're just so excited that they find that new passion. And I found it for me. When I started this business, I had one child. Now I got three. And my whole goal is to never update a resume again. I want to be self-sufficient. That's not everybody else's, that's not everybody's
Right.
goal, but that was my goal. And it's been several years now, and I haven't looked back, man. It's been a blast. There are hard days, there are great days, but man, overall, it's been a blast, and I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Yeah, and that's great because, helping people understand, what you do. That's kind of why, like with this podcast, I want other people to understand what people do to find that joy and happiness. Because I personally find working for someone and not having any ownership in the situation, it's not really that fulfilling for me, because I'm basically going to work and I'm doing things for other people instead of doing them for myself. So that's why I think that it's a great path if you want to have control, because you mentioned well, they laid me off and then they brought me back and they laid me off. Well, you get to decide who lays you off. You get to decide. You do the work. You're betting on yourself to make sure that you are doing everything you possibly can to be successful and to continue that income rolling in, because that's what you have to do. It's all on your shoulders, right?
Yep. And so the thing that broke my back from corporate America was I saw a VP above me that was like the poster child of the organization. The CEO loved him, everybody loved him, and he worked there for years. I think it was 20 or 30 years devoted to this company. And when they did that last round of layoffs, without batting an eye, they laid him off overnight, right? So that thought came into my mind to say, hey, I could devote myself 20, 30, 40 years into an organization, but man, overnight things can change, right? So it really does boil down to control. Even if we get a rough economic times, right? If there is a recession or whatever the case is, everybody is at risk, right? The idea of a steady paycheck is really just a facade these days, right? It's a steady paycheck, but in reality, you have zero control, and overnight you can lose it, essentially, right? In a business, you may not have your best years, right? You may not have record-setting numbers, but man, oh man, you got control about what you do, how you manage it, and how you continue through those times. And again, a great franchisor will give you some support and pivot as needed, like many did during COVID. So there's an element of control that's also very liberating, and many times can outweigh the risks once you know what you're getting into and how to do it. Fear is false evidence appearing false evidence appearing real is what we call fear. Mm-hmm. So the thing is, like, you don't know until you know, and that's what I help you is figuring out: is it true fear, is it valid, or is it all in your head? And there's a lot of things that you won't know. So I help people just learn about it, right? And that's the fun part. I know that was very long-winded to that, but hopefully it was.
No, it makes sense. It definitely does. I was thinking as you were talking about that, I'm starting to wonder, because I know how my household is, right? Like it's funny how there's two sides to this, right? Because like my wife is the polar opposite of me. Like I'm a risk taker. Like I'll take a risk because I know that the reward is very possible. But my wife is very like, she's a nurse. She loves her job. She loves the retirement. She loves getting paid. She likes going to the same place every day or whatever, the 3 days a week that she does. She really enjoys it. And then she looks at me and she's like, man, you're kind of crazy. How are we going to make this work? So my question is what did your wife think when here you are, MBA, leaving corporate America, and now you're going to go work for yourself? What did she think?
My wife is awesome. She supported me. I think that in most marriages or relationships, right, there's always somebody that's the gas. There's always somebody saying, yeah, let's do this. There's always somebody that's the brake. And that's what makes a healthy engagement, because you have the stop and the go, right? And so she knew that I was not happy, right? My assessment that I took and that I take people through highlighted something, a commanding attitude. So I did not work well with micromanagement. I have to control my destiny. I have to control what I'm doing. And so every job I had, she just knew I wasn't happy, right? I just was not that guy that could be put into that corporate box, or I could do it for a short time and then see burnout, right? So she absolutely was like, hey, well, let's learn about it and let's see. It took a lot of prayer, a lot of thought, a lot of consultations with her and people that I trust in my space, to give me some great advice. But I remember there was a moment I was on my deck outside and I just prayed about it. And I said, okay, do I go back to the traditional path, or do I try something new and give that to God and see what happens? And man, I said, I don't look back. So she absolutely had my back. But obviously there's fear. There's always anxiety. There's always worries. So what I always say is that's a healthy thing, right? Yeah. You are fairly confident that I could do this business if it's the right thing for you. A lot of times that fear and anxiety, you use it as fuel to find success, right? So I always tell my clients, once you kind of know, hey, this could be a pathway for me and I want to go down that road, don't look back. Don't look over your shoulder. Don't ask questions like, is there something better for me? Those are unanswerable questions. You'll spend years getting to no answer. So what I say is, hey, if this is the right vehicle for you that you can achieve your goals and your dreams with, man, commit to it and use that anxiety or that worry as fuel to make it successful, right? And I think that's the key. If a spouse or a client are always second guessing themselves, they're always looking over their shoulder, so it's a tough situation, right? They both have to say, hey, let's just go for it. We know the risks, most of the risks, and we're okay with it because the rewards are great. So go for it and let that anxiety fuel you. So we were both anxious, but we kind of turned it into that fuel, right? And she's an awesome support every day, man. She's awesome.
It's funny when you were talking about your assessment and all the things you're talking about. It's the same thing in my house. It's the same thing. And I feel like we talked about this assessment. It's funny. Sounds pretty familiar.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we go through some really cool assessments that just lay the groundwork, right? Like would this be something that would be good for you, that excites you? I never disqualify people from these, from business ownership based on their assessments. I never put people in boxes, but it does help really understand, hey, why are you feeling this way? Is there something for you? And what are the obstacles we'll experience in our journey together so that we can really be the most productive in what we learn, right? That's key.
So after you get done, and I don't want to say done because I don't know the end result of this process that you do. How do you follow up with people? Like if you place someone in a franchise and you get them going and all that stuff, is there any like aftercare for that? Like, do you still counsel a little bit? And I keep calling it counseling, coaching. I mean, it's, to me, counseling, coaching is kind of the same thing, because you're helping them to do what they want to do. Well, how does that work?
Yeah, so case by case. Once you get to the point of investing in a franchise, we've spent a lot of time together. So a lot of my clients are really, really close to near and dear to my heart. So I sometimes will text them, email them at least every 6 months. Hey, how you doing? How's the business? I had a couple clients who, hey man, I'm off to the races. I'm really excelling, right? There was a couple that said, wow, this is a little bit of a slower start. So I did actually send a book to him that I think he found very helpful, where it talks about the dip in the business, especially early on. And so it helped him kind of break through that barrier. So I don't necessarily require anybody to have maintenance calls with me or anything like that. Everybody's different and needs a different level of support. My hope is that the franchise they invest in will be that support for them in that business, right? Offer the coaching, the training, the tools. However, I'm always available for conversation to chat about things, see how things are going. So everybody's different. Some people want to keep talking forever. Some people say, hey, I'm off to the races. Thanks for your help. But at the end of the day, the relationship is real and carries on, right? Forever.
Well, I appreciate you hopping on here. I want to talk to you about one more thing, because this is something that comes up, and I don't know if you're aware, but I started doing this. My podcast it was normally like a weekly thing, and I started about 2 weeks ago doing a morning coffee at 5 o'clock in the morning every morning because I'm up early.
Yeah, I watched a couple of those. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Well, some stuff comes up from time to time, and this morning I found myself with someone in the peanut gallery talking smack to me. Which it happens, right? I just kind of wanted to ask you, when you started to do this, was there naysayers? Were there people who were saying, don't do this, go do the corporate thing, it's a safe bet, do the right thing, don't do, was there people who tried to sway you from starting your own business?
Yeah, of course. I think the people that know me really well, my wife, my dad, my mom, my brothers, sisters, I think they all knew my situation and knew my attitude. So they really had my back to a great degree. But absolutely, yes, a couple of friends, a couple of my acquaintances that didn't know me so well, they're kind of, I hate to say this, but programmed to that thought of, hey, why are you giving up a 401k, or why are you giving up your benefits, type situation? The bottom line is there's alternatives, right? They're just not aware of it. So I had to kind of do my due diligence, do my research. Obviously my wife is on board with me. That's key. But at the end of the day, going through the journey open-minded and just getting information is absolutely valuable, because the more information you have, right, the better clarity comes to the forefront. I think that a lot of people that just don't have that information, they just have assumptions. That's where they just kind of stick to that mindset, right? So absolutely, some people in my life were, hey, let's take a look, see what it's all about. Some people were like, hey, you're crazy. But at the end of the day, I just knew it was the thing for me, right? Yeah. And the more I learned about the different concepts, I just validated. Man, if I said no to these, I would regret it 10 years down the road, right? I would be another 10 years down the corporate pathway. Who knows, laid off again, right? And I'm just 10 years older. And then I look back and say, wow, I should have started that 10 years ago. When I actually called many coaches before I joined, I picked their brains, right? That's part of the journey, is talking to franchisees who are actually doing it and really seeing what they say. And so I think all of them that I talked to said, man, I wish I did this 10 years ago. And I'm a little bit on the younger side, I would say, of the coaching demographic. And so I said, man, I am 10 years ago, right? So do I want to be that guy 10 years from now going, man, I wish I would have done that 10 years ago? Or do I want to be that guy that says, man, I'm so glad I did that 10 years ago, right? And found that freedom. So yeah, I mean, it's everybody's different. I never want to put anybody in a box. That's my story. Everybody's journey and story looks different. But yeah, hopefully that insight kind of just helps a little bit with people who might be watching this, kind of say, hey, that could be me, right? Let's have a conversation. Let's chat about it. Let's just learn.
Yep. Well, if people want to connect with you, maybe someone's trying to start their own business or they want to get into a franchise, or they're not happy where they're at. What is the best way to get in touch with you to get that going?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a website. I got a LinkedIn profile. I don't know if there's a way to post those links. Maybe.
Yeah, we'll put them in the show notes for sure.
Yeah, so absolutely. So click on those links. If you go to my website, Ritterling at esourcecoach.com, it'll be there. There's a link that says schedule a call. So pop on my calendar, find a 30-minute time slot that works for you, and we'll just have an introduction call. I can answer any questions that you have, give any clarity to the journey and the discovery process, and then get to know you, right? What's your situation? How you feeling? Where are you at? And then if after that intro call, you say, hey, this is something worth pursuing, then at that point, I would then send you the assessments, and then we would have 45-minute Zoom calls for a few sessions. And then after that, if all things are go for launch, we'll then kind of go right into looking at some specific concepts. So we really talk about the client 2 or 3 times, just about you and your goals before we start looking at things, because we want to be targeted, right? So the website, schedule a call. We'll have an introduction call and see what the best next steps are for you. That's probably the easiest way. And also my cell phone number, it's very publicly posted. Text me, shoot me a call, leave me a voicemail, very accessible. And I always want to be accessible to people who just have questions and want to learn more. But scheduling through that bookings link is very efficient and probably the best way to get on my calendar.
Well, we'll make sure that that's all in the show notes. Andrew, I want to say thanks again for hanging. This is always an enlightening conversation. I've enjoyed getting to know you, and I know that there's lots of people who could use your help, so I appreciate it.
Hey, well, Wes, likewise, man. I really love what you're doing here, shaping success and helping people, and getting to know you has been an honor and a blessing for me as well. And so, hey, thank you for having me. Such a blessing to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. All right, everyone. Well, that is the end of the show. We will make sure that Andrew's information is in the show notes so that you can contact him, connect with him. If you would like to help the show grow, join the Patreon. We'll have a little after podcast conversation that you will only be able to hear if you are a Patreon. For as little as $3 a month, you can help support that. Until next time, I challenge you to find the shape of your success.